Yes, no, we'll start now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So thank you for coming today evening, and we'll continue on the discussion of sensitivity in relationships. I'll do a brief recap of what we discussed yesterday. I spoke about why sensitivity is important, because relationships are what cause enormous distress in today's world. People fear rejection, and people often come to spirituality because they want a sense of community and belonging. And if they find supportive, encouraging relationships in spiritual life, that enables them not only to get attracted but to continue. But if the relationships in spiritual life tend to become judgmental or harsh, then that disheartens people. And normally at a physical level, if somebody has some limitation, we adapt ourselves. Somebody can't hear, we'll speak loudly. Somebody can't tolerate loud noise, we'll speak softly. But these physical needs or limitations we understand easily, but the emotional limitations or needs, often we downplay or neglect them. But they are also as real as physical. And where, on the other hand, in spiritual life, often we hurt each other by being judgmental, because we feel we have spiritual knowledge, we have the knowledge of right or wrong, and therefore that gives us the right to tell people what is right and what is wrong. And based on that, we just let people give them judgmental words without considering the effect. So I talked about how right and wrong is not just categorical, it is also contextual. You know, from what background a person is coming, what situation a person is. Because of that, they may be doing certain things, and if we do not know those things, then we will unnecessarily hurt them. So we judge ourselves by our intentions, even if our actions are wrong. So I just want to help that person, but we may be speaking harsh words, and we judge others by their actions, not their intentions. So because of that, if we have a negative attitude towards a person, then automatically if we see some behavior, we ascribe some motivation or some intention to them, which will be negative. And in that way, we justify whatever harsh words we may be speaking. And if we learn to be sensitive, then we will avoid speaking such words. Humility means to acknowledge the complexity of reality, and therefore to not just based on our limited frame of reference to pass comments. And in this way we can minimize the hurt among people. So today I'll speak on the topic of how sensitivity can be applied without degenerating into sentimentality. Sentimentality means that, oh no, this will make this person feel bad. We just driven only by feelings. Sentimentality means that sentiments are made into all important, and there is no parameter for discerning things apart from sentiments. When that happens, then people just don't have any objective standards left. There is no opportunity to rise upwards. So for example, sentimentality would mean that how we would never be sentimental. Say a child is peering down a window. The child is enjoying that. And the child may fall out of a window and it's a steep fall. Hey, stop that! The mother will shout, yell at the child and catch the child. Stop that. Now, in this case, the child may feel, why did you stop me? I was enjoying. But, you know what enjoying? That enjoyment is very risky. You may fall down. So here, even when the child may feel angry, still will speak strongly, because the child doesn't right now have the intelligence to understand how dangerous it can be, and we have. Now when somebody is in a natural position of authority, such as a mother, and someone else, maybe this can be kept on top so that somebody can sit here. Can you keep this on top or keep it somewhere behind? So, thank you. So when we are in such a position of natural authority, say a mother and a child, then speaking something like this becomes easy. But there are other times, and in such a situation, explaining to the child why it is dangerous is also not difficult. That if you fall down, the child may have experience falling down from a bed, and even that hurts from a small bed, or just simply when they're walking they fall down, it hurts. Fall down from this great height, it will hurt so much. So there, both the mother has the authority and the consequence of that action is also very easy to explain. But in many situations, even when something is not the best, not the right thing to do, the best thing to do, it may not be so easily apparent to the other person what is wrong with that course of action. And when that happens, when it's not apparent, then people, if we try to correct them, they may just not, why are you doing this? That's just your opinion. You think that is wrong, I think it is right. So then this will lead to relativism. Now relativism is the idea that everything is relative. And when applied in the realm of morality, it is called as moral relativism. That means that if you think it is right for you. If I think it is right for me. Don't impose your morality on me. People say that. So I was just a couple of months ago in America, in Silicon Valley. I was giving a talk in Amazon. So there, the same issue came up. And then I was talking about moral relativism. And then I asked, well, one of the person raised a question about moral relativism. So I asked them that right now, is there anyone in the world who is doing something that you think is wrong? He said, of course. It says, there are terrorists who are killing innocent people. There are child abusers who are abusing children. They are obviously doing wrong things. Yes. No. But they don't think they are doing wrong. The terrorists are convinced that they are saving the world from the infidels. The child abusers think it's their right to enjoy. So, if somebody feels that it is right, then does it make it right? It says nobody lives fully according to moral relativism. Now, what is right and what is wrong may vary from person to person. That idea may vary from person to person. But the fact that there is something right and something wrong, that is universal. And we all have this sense. That say, suppose I am walking along the road, you walk with crutches. So by accident, if my crutches, instead of putting on the ground, I put them on somebody's foot. As they feel a little pain, I just move my crutches. I'm sorry, I say. Now, I can very well justify, I didn't see you, that's why I put the leg over there. But both agree, that was the wrong thing for me to do. I may give an explanation, but that explanation is not an excuse. I'll apologize over there. So now we all have a sense that some things are right, some things are wrong. Now where does this sense come from? The specific things that may be right or wrong will vary. But there is objective morality in the sense that the principle that there are right things and wrong things, that is universal. The specifics of what is right and what is wrong may vary. Like yesterday I talked about categorical morality, that okay, this is right, this is wrong, this is a category of right, this is a category of wrong. This may vary from person to person or from culture to culture. But the fact that there is the category of right and the category of wrong, that is universal. Even in something as simple as, say, language. Certain usages, they are not proper. So certain words, they have a very strong judgmental or pejorative connotation. So you don't use those words. So people from Africa, earlier they were referred to as Negroes. Now nobody refers to that way. It's considered to be a very judgmental form of word. In America, we don't even refer to them as blacks. They refer to as African Americans. These are considered very judgmental words. So even in something as language and the use of words, there are words that are right and wrong. So the category of right and wrong is always there. What falls in which category may vary from place to place. So in America, to use the word black is considered to refer to somebody as black. He says, why are you labeling people based on the color of their skin? That's what they say. But it seems here in England, black is quite acceptable. I was at a school and they said, famous black leaders of the world. So it may vary what specifically is considered right or wrong, but the principle that is right and wrong is universal. So after I spoke then one of the Amazon executives was there, the middle rung executive. So he came and said that, we also accept this principle that there is right and wrong. So they sell clothes and they have apparel, and the whole section of apparel. When they sell clothes, they show people wearing those clothes. So for men, for women, they show men, women wearing those clothes. But they say when it comes to children, say girls who are underage, we don't show them wearing those clothes. We just show the clothes, because we don't want in any way to incite pedophilia. Now that means even a company which is out there for commercial purposes, they also have certain idea, this is right, this is wrong, and they will not do that is wrong. So the point which I am stating is that being sensitive doesn't mean being sentimental, and everything is determined by feelings. Now there are times when certain things are right and certain things are wrong, and they have to be communicated appropriately, and that is in fact a major part of spiritual education. Tasmat shastram pramanam te karya akarya vyavasthitam gyatva shastra vidhanoktam karma kartumaha iharasi. In 16.24 in the Bhagavad-gita, when Krishna concludes the chapter of divine and demoniac natures, at that time he says we all should know from Shastra what is to be done and what is not to be done, and then mold our actions accordingly. So this is one primary purpose of scriptural education. So if we are going to live according to scripture and we are going to share scripture, then we do have to tell that some things are right and some things are wrong, and why they are so. So generally speaking, so this is one part that we are not being sentimental over here in the name of being sensitive. Sensitive means that we don't cause unnecessary pain. Like yesterday I gave the example that my hand had so many pricks because of taking injection. So the nurse was trying to find out which place she could prick without having to aggravate an existing wound. So now if she says, oh no, there are so many pricks over here, I will not take the blood sample only. Well, then how will that be tested? So that being sentimental means that the supreme virtue becomes not causing hurt to anyone. Sometimes hurt needs to be caused to promote a higher healing. So ultimately, of course, sarve jana sukhina bhavantu. The Vedic aphorism is that let everybody be happy. But now how will everybody be happy? There is to be a process to be followed for that. Somebody is a drunkard and they think that the more I drink, the happier I will be. Now that is not the kind of happiness that is desirable. That is highly counterproductive. So some things have to be pointed out. This is right and this is wrong. And when we do this, it is in this context that the example of the surgeon is used. The surgeon is one who cuts to heal. The surgeon often wounds to heal wounds. So there is cutting of the body which is painful, which causes wounds, and that wounding is meant to heal. So similarly, there are times in our relationships when we may have to tell, okay, this is wrong, and if you continue doing this, it's going to have a terrible result. And if we at that time become too sentimental, no, how can I speak this? What will that person feel? No, if we don't tell them, then eventually the result is going to be that they will meet with disaster. Say, if somebody is drunk and they are driving a car, you're drunk now, don't drive. No, I'm not drunk, I can drive. It's sometimes we are a little drunk, and at that time we understand we are drunk. Sometimes we are so drunk that we don't even understand we are drunk. So at that time, people will not even stop, but somebody else has to stop them. Otherwise, they may injure themselves, they may kill someone, they may even kill themselves by driving under intoxication. Or otherwise, at the very least, they'll get a ticket, they will lose their license. So there are times when even if people feel bad, we have to tell certain things. So just as a surgeon cuts to heal, sometimes as a part of our service to others, we may have to speak cutting words. Generally, in scriptures, when this example is used, it is talked for very exalted devotees speaking to new people who have some attachments, who have not just attachments but misconceptions. See, attachment means we are very strongly fixated in something. Misconception means we think that is the source of pleasure, and giving it up is unbearable, is even unthinkable. So alcoholics think that without alcohol I can't live. Actually, it is because of alcohol they can't live properly. But the attachment has also created within them a misconception, and that misconception makes them more and more fixated to that attachment. So attachment causes misconception, and misconception aggravates the attachment, and that way it goes on as a vicious circle. So at that time, the misconception has to be challenged and countered. So there are examples in scripture. Say in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is Maharaj Chitraketu. He is grieving terribly over the loss of his child, and at that time, there is a time and a place for grieving. Grieving is a natural necessary requirement for healing of emotions. It's like if I'm physically wounded, then if my hand is fractured, I can't be expected to immediately resume normal activity. I need some time for the hand to heal, then I can resume normal activity, say lifting weights or something like that. Similarly, if we lose a loved one, there will be a time for grieving. We can't, that's the emotional wound which we have sustained, and we need to give time for emotional healing, and then we'll be able to resume normal activities. So when Maharaj Pandu, when Maharaj Dashrath passes away in Ayodhya, they have a statewide period of mourning because of his death, and just so that they need time. The same for a finite perspective. The renunciation attracted so many. So sometimes they need time when for now there with a knife, first when nothing works, So practically without the doctor, the surgeon, and I was with him to go for surgery. For surgery, he said, "You have to give me an assurance that I'll be all right. Only then I'll do the surgery." Doctor said, I cannot give an assurance. We will do our best, but nobody can give an assurance that you'll be all right. What to speak of we give an assurance? After the surgery, when you're going back home, on the road something can happen. Can the government give an assurance that nothing will happen? We will do our best. In fact, surgeons, they actually often ask for a disclaimer. That if some things go wrong beyond our human control, then we are not responsible. And unless the patient sign that, the surgeons won't do the surgery. If the patient is not in the condition, a relative has to sign that. So the point is, surgery is usually never done without consent. The patient voluntarily recognizes that I am in a sick condition and I need treatment, and this surgeon is competent enough to treat me. Therefore, I entrust myself to the surgeon. And even after that, still surgery is not just the first thing that is done. Before that, there is anesthesia that is given, by which the person doesn't feel that pain. Once my leg was fractured, I had to do some surgery, and normally for that surgery they would give full body anesthesia, so the person goes unconscious. But I had some heart issues, because of which I could not give full body anesthesia. So then they gave me anesthesia from the below the waist. So then at that time I was conscious and I was awake, and it was practically like they were doing the surgery. It was all the sounds which you might hear at a construction site. Tuck, 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 grrr, grinding, ripping, knocking, all of them were coming. So it was quite disconcerting to think that all this is happening to my body. So, but although I was hearing those sounds, I was not feeling any pain, because the anesthesia had been given. So actually, if the anesthesia is not given, it can be unbearably painful. And lastly, even after the treatment is done, when the surgery is done, after that the patient is given pain medication to help deal with the pain. So surgery is not a casual thing. Similarly, when there are times when we have to speak strongly to someone, that is like doing surgery. And first of all, surgery should never be the first course of treatment. Something is going wrong, we just explode at them, judgmentally. This is wrong, you're terrible, this. And even if we have been accepted as a spiritual guide, it is not that with respect to physical disease, people understand that they are sick. With respect to spirituality, it is not so easy to understand that we are sick. Even if you understand, yes, I want to attain love for Krishna, I want to grow spiritually, but still that idea that I am sick is not so easy to understand or to accept. So unless somebody accepts somebody else as a spiritual authority, it is not right to pass judgmental words to them, because they just go away. People are practicing spirituality voluntarily and they will just go away. So I was at an interfaith conference in America. So there they had one of the churches, they had done or many churches together had done an extensive survey of why people leave the church. There are many people who say that they believe in Jesus, but they don't go to any church. So why is that? So one of the main reasons they found was, they said that we just found that the people in the church were too judgmental, that they would just criticize us, hurt us, make us feel bad. So I was in Texas, so I saw one slogan. People put some things on the car bumpers. The slogan was, "Oh God, please save me from your preachers." Normally, God saves us through His preachers. His preachers tell us, what we are meant to do, what life is meant for, how we have to develop love for God. But if the preachers become judgmental, oh God, please save me from them. That's the attitude that happens. So if people become alienated by the way those who are representing God talk, then they just go away. So I was in Jagannath Puri, or I was in NIT in a Bhubaneswar, which is close to Jagannath Puri. So I was giving a talk over there to a lot of over 1,000 students were there, and then after that, many of them came to and talked with me, and many of them, they are from Orissa, part of India which is quite pious. They were asking that if we go to Jagannath Puri, then there are the pandas, and right from the moment we enter, they are asking money, and they are almost forcing to take money from us. On the other hand, he says, several of them said there is a lot of Christian missionary work also going on in that part of the world. Of course, all of India it is going on. He says, but if you go to a Christian church, the preachers over there, they talk so nicely with us. They sit and talk. They don't expect anything from us. Just tell us about the teaching of the Bible. They answer our questions. So he says that why is it that Hindu teachers, Hindu priests seem to be so ill-behaved, and Christian priests seem to be so well-behaved? So I answered elaborately. So main thing is that actually in India, traditionally, there was a system by which the temples would be having a lot of land with them. So kings and wealthy people would donate land to the temples. Their land would belong to the deities, but all the priests who would be taking care of the deities, they would be maintained through the cultivation of those lands. And by that, they would have a regular income. Charity will come, but charity is not a reliable source of income. And many of the priests in traditional Indian temples, they were householders. They would have their family, children, they have to take care of everyone. So, in the 1980s, the Indian government passed a Land Resettlement Act, in which they decided that there's a lot of inequity in India in land distribution. So anybody who has land above a particular quantity, that land will be taken from them. Like the Jagirdars, the landlords will be there. The land will be taken and redistributed among the poor. And the Indian government brought temples under this category. They did not bring churches or mosques under the category, but they brought temples under the category. That's why it like in just a month or so, hundreds of people just lost their source of income. All these temples had their priests, and they were living on the land, but the land was taken away from them. Now they had been generation upon generation, they had been trained to be priests. They did not have any other training. When it happened in South India, see, before 1960s, 1970s, not many Indians were coming to America or coming to the Western world. But then when this whole thing started happening, people started feeling discriminated. They immigrated to other parts of the world also. So there is a historical reason. Now the church in America is India is the second biggest employer after the Indian government. So they have huge amount of property. So there is a reason for this. The churches often get money from abroad. The temples don't get so much money from abroad. But still, this does not excuse the way the pandas behave. Some of the pandas may be very pure and exalted, but the way they come off is very unfortunate. But from the perceptions point of view, what happens? People think, hey, these people behave like this. Why should I go here? Why should I go here? So people are practicing religion voluntarily. If at all they are practicing something, they are practicing it voluntarily. And if they don't feel good about it, they will stop practicing it. Of course, we can't just be driven by people's feelings, but people's feelings have to be taken into account. People have a rational side, but people also have an emotional side. So if someone has to be given some correction, then it has to be done such a way that the rational side also has to be satisfied, and the emotional side, the wound has to be minimized. If that is not done, people just give up. So the major, you could say, exodus of people from religious organizations happens primarily because of relational issues. Not so many people have philosophical issues. No, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. A few are there, but more. If people had philosophical issues, mostly they would not come only, because the philosophy doesn't change. And it is not that when we came, we didn't tell you Krishna is God. Now we are telling you Krishna is God. No, philosophy is more or less there all the time. So it's not usually it is not the philosophy that makes people go away. There can be various factors, but one of them is the bitterness in the relationships. So that can be aggravated if we take the surgeon's scalpel in our hands and start slashing others with it. So now sometimes the surgeon's scalpel has to be used, but as I said, it has to be used carefully. It's to be used after an adequate amount of relationship has been developed with a person. So basically, normally criticism is never easy to take. Even if we are wrong, to accept that we are wrong is not easy to accept. Now, when can we take criticism? Broadly, it is in three situations. One is when there is no alternative. Say if our boss criticizes us and that is the only job we have, then we will not like it, we will still resent it. There was a top company, maybe this was about 15 years ago, this was a survey done. A top company says, what is the favorite fantasy of the employees? So there many people describe different things, but one common fantasy was, several employees, it's all anonymous survey, they said, they imagined a bust of their boss and beating with boxing gloves. So all that resentment is pent up in people. So now sometimes we just have to accept criticism because there's no alternative. So one is where there is no alternative, when it's a matter of a provision of necessity like our salary or something like that. The second is where we respect and trust the person. If we feel somebody is my well-wisher, then it becomes easier to accept that criticism. And third is where with our intelligence. So first is necessity, second is there is an emotional connect with the person which is stronger than what the criticism will sever. And the third is if we are very rational and intelligent, then we understand. Okay, and this makes sense what they are saying. So now with respect to spiritual life, people don't feel that there is no alternative to this. Of course, if you understand the philosophy properly, understand that Krishna is the goal of our life. But that takes a long time and people feel, maybe I don't want to practice bhakti if people are like this. So then they don't feel it's alternative. So then what about rational philosophy? That is important. We need to educate ourselves philosophically and we need to provide education philosophically so that even if there are ups and downs, people still keep practicing bhakti. So, but the most important is that there should be a relationship of trust. When people feel that this person is my well-wisher, then they become open to improvement, open to suggestion, open to criticism. If the false ego goes into the defensive, and not even a nuclear weapon can penetrate it. Once a person, no, I'm right. Then once they start saying that, no matter what you say, it just doesn't penetrate. They'll find some way to argue and say, no, I'm right, you're wrong. So therefore, there has to be a relationship of trust and affection in the backdrop then some correction can be given. Without that, if it is given, then it is just alienating. Basically, when we interact with people, what is our purpose? We have things to do. basically we may interact with people because we have some things to do with them, or we like them. We just like being with a person, that's why we interact with them, or we have to do some things with them. These are two main reasons. So we have, now both are not necessarily discrete, they can overlap also. We like someone and we have something to do with them also. So now when we have something to do with, we have some things to do and they are a part of the team in which we have to do it. At that time, there is a strong tendency to have a very utilitarian attitude. Utilitarian attitude means that we just, you are meant to do this, do this, do this. We start thinking of people not as human beings with conscious emotions. We start thinking of them as just tools who are meant to do what we are telling them to do. I was at a temple and there was one devotee. Everybody was telling this person, he just bosses around with everyone, just shouts, yells at everyone. And he was a nice devotee. So I was friends with him, so I talked with him. And his response was, if they would listen to what I was telling, I wouldn't have to shout at them. Now, obviously, if people listen, nobody has to shout. But the test of our character, the test of our Krishna consciousness is what happens when people don't listen to us. Srila Prabhupada says that one's greatness is to be estimated by one's capacity to tolerate provoking situations. If people are nice to me, then what is difficult in being nice to them? But it's only when people are not nice to me, then comes the test of my Krishna consciousness. How do I deal with them at that time? So sometimes we just justify, they did like that, so I did like that. Well, okay, but if you are claiming to be in a position of authority, then you also have to have greater maturity. You cannot just have a tit-for-tat attitude. You did like that, so I do like that. We have to have a more understanding, more mature attitude. And sometimes, some things we just have to let go. In the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the pastime of Prithu Maharaj. So, Prithu Maharaj was a very virtuous and powerful king. And in those times, the kings would often perform sacrifices. Elaborate fire sacrifices. They were sacrifices which were done to invoke auspiciousness on the kingdom. They were pious activities. And kings who were very prosperous and very powerful, they would do many sacrifices. And traditionally it is considered if a king can do 100 sacrifices, then that king will eventually become Indra, the king of heavens. So Maharaj Prithu conducted 99 sacrifices. And when he was about to conduct the 100th sacrifice, at that time, Indra became insecure. Indra became so fearful that he started coming in various forms and disrupting the sacrifice. He tried to steal the horse away, sometimes he would do this, sometimes he would do that. And initially Prithu Maharaj was patient, but eventually got angry and started chasing after. Initially Prithu Maharaj's son was going and he was getting back the horse, sacrificial horse, whatever Indra would do. But finally Prithu Maharaj himself got angry, he took his bow and started chasing Indra, to shoot Indra down. At that time Brahma came. This Brahma, the head of the Brahmana among the gods, the advisor, everybody respects. So and he said, just let go. Just let go. He says Indra is so attached to having the idea that he alone is the person who has done 100 sacrifices. He doesn't want you to do 100 sacrifices. So just let go. So it's letting go is not easy. There was in Indian cricket, there was a famous cricketer, probably the most famous cricketer in Indian history. So there was a match between India and Sri Lanka, and India was batting 3rd innings and the 4th innings was coming. So in the 4th innings you had to get the opposing team out. So the captain declared the innings when this batsman was on 190. He wanted to make a double century. He was so angry. He was so angry, just went and blasted at his captain. And this person, actually he had made many double centuries, he made many double centuries afterwards also. But he says for months and months, he refused to talk with that captain. So why do you not let me complete double century? He said, actually, we have to move forward, to win this match. So we had to have enough time to give to our bowlers, but he just didn't accept it. So actually, if we are on the verge of coming to a landmark, and then suddenly you are deprived of that, it is not so easy to give up that attachment. But what happened was, when Prithu was told this, Prithu could have said, I am not wrong, I am acting virtuously. I am doing the sacrifice so that my kingdom will flourish. So it is, if I am doing sacrifice, what is it stopping him? Why should he stop me? He is wrong, you correct him. But it's interesting, Brahmaji did not correct Indra. Brahma advised Prithu, and Prithu accepted the advice. When he accepted the advice, what happened by that? He was stuck with 99. It's like a cricketer, 99 not out, and the match gets declared. Hey, wait, let me score 1 run, isn't it? So he said, let me do one sacrifice. He said, no. He was stuck with 99, but because of his detachment, because of his willingness to sacrifice so that the conflict would be resolved, the result was that Lord Vishnu became pleased. And Lord Vishnu himself came, appeared in the sacrificial arena and blessed Prithu profusely. Now, usually the sacrifices are done for satisfying the various devatas and ultimately for satisfying Vishnu. But the devatas don't usually appear. And even if devatas appear, Vishnu doesn't appear. Devatas accept the sacrifice, but they don't visibly reveal themselves. If they are very pleased, they reveal themselves. But Vishnu revealing himself is extremely rare. So, Vishnu came not because Prithu Maharaj performed 100 sacrifices, but because for a higher cause, Prithu was ready to live with 99 sacrifices. So earlier I talked about right and wrong, but there is the right beyond right. The right beyond right means that something may be right in the moral category. Morally speaking, you can say that, Prithu might say, I am right, Indra is wrong. But more than what is right and wrong in terms of moral category, look at what will have the right effect. If you insist on having to do this, I want this, it must be done, then it's simply going to escalate the conflict. But no, I am right, he is wrong. Yes, it's true, you may be right and he is wrong, but he is not mature enough to understand that right now. You are mature enough. Normally the devatas are considered higher in the hierarchy than the humans. But the Bhagavatam repeatedly shows how bhakti inverts the cosmic hierarchy. If somebody has devotion, then even a demon may become greater than a devata. With Vritarasura is a demon, but he becomes greater than devata Indra. Prahlad is a boy, a child is subordinate normally to the father. Prahlad is a child, but he becomes greater than Hiranyakashipu. So similarly here, what happens? A manava, a human being, becomes greater than a god because he has devotion. And Indra says, so Brahmaji tells Prithu, let go. So the right beyond right means, rather than thinking of right in terms of category, this is right, this is wrong, we can look at right in terms of consequence. What will have the right consequence? In the Mahabharata it is said that how do we know whether an action is right or wrong? There are broadly 3 ways of knowing it: intent, content and consequence. Why am a person doing it? Because sometimes the action the person does may be wrong, but the intent is very good. And sometimes that is itself what is appreciated. Like say when Shabari, the tribal lady, she was offering food to Ram. Normally when you offer food to God, it should be clean and pure, but she was biting the berries to see which were sweet and which were sour, and then those which were sweet she was giving. So now that means she was giving the food that has touched her lips to the Lord, but her intent was very good, and the Lord accepted that. So there is intent, then there is content. What are we doing? Is this the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? There are moral categories, but then there is consequence. Sometimes what I may be saying may be right, but it may not have the right effect at that time. So if it is not going to have the right effect, then better don't speak at that time. Speak that which will have the right effect. Our purpose is not just to speak the truth. Our purpose is to speak the truth in a way that attracts people to the truth. Our purpose is to speak the truth in a way that attracts people to the truth. If people get alienated from the truth, then what is the use of communicating that truth? And Srila Prabhupada was expert at this on various occasions. Once somebody asked Prabhupada, a hippie asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, Prabhupada has spoken about the spiritual world and how happy a place it is. Swamiji, what is the bliss of Vaikuntha like? This person was just coming, had been high on drugs and just coming out of the Swamiji, what is the bliss of Vaikuntha like? So Prabhupada said, Vaikuntha is like an ocean of LSD. Ocean of LSD. Somebody will say, hey, in which scripture is the bliss of Vaikuntha compared with a drug? Isn't it? That is transcendental. This is tamasic. This is the mode of ignorance. But for a person whose definition of happiness is in terms of drugs, you have to tell that, explain a language which makes sense to them. So the point is not just to get it right. The point is to get it across. The point is not just to get it right. I have spoken the right thing. The point is to get it across, to convey the message properly. And this is often an art. And there is so Srila Prabhupada, sometimes we hear of him, he would use strong words like fools, rascals, for speaking, for pointing out wrong behaviors. But if you look at it, I did an elaborate study of Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada used these words primarily in his personal conversations with his disciples. There's a Veda-based software which has all of Prabhupada's works. So, say Prabhupada has used the word, some words like rascal, he's used around 450 times. I got the exact statistics, but suppose assume it's something like some figure like that. But in his printed works, the thing which he published as books, he has used it less than 25 times. So his conversations were private with his disciples. They already accepted him as authority, and they're saying, no, this is not right, this is not right, this is wrong. But in his books, he's very cautious in the way he speaks. And he said, my primary legacy is my books. So Srila Prabhupada was strong at times, but Srila Prabhupada was more than being strong, he was effective. Whatever was needed for getting people to Krishna, he did that. So it is, Srila Prabhupada had many advantages. First of all, he was much older than everybody else. So his disciples already accepted him as authority. And actually even the word rascal, Srila Prabhupada learned his English in 1920s. And at that time, the word rascal did not have the same connotation that it has now. Rascal was more of a affectionate word of reproach. It's like a child does something naughty and hey, you rascal, what are you doing? And the word rascal, today it is used, not used. That person is a rascal. Rascal, how dare you call somebody a rascal? Words have different connotations. So today the word does not have the right connotation. So Prabhupada often used the word cult. It's a cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now at that time, when Srila Prabhupada learned and used English, cult simply meant a group of people. But over the years, the word cult has come to mean a very insular group of people where people are brainwashed, people are indoctrinated, people are manipulated. So the word has a negative connotation. So we don't use that word at all. So Indra Maharaj had a diary, we call it the Diary of the Travelling Preacher. But now the word preaching itself has got a negative connotation. You think you will preach to me? You're going to talk down to me? So the word preaching has got a negative connotation. So now he's changed the diary to Diary of a Travelling Monk. So we have to be sensitive to words. So Prabhupada would use the word rascal, he would use it very carefully, and he used it in a particular context. It meant a particular thing. Today it doesn't mean that thing. There's a lecture in which Prabhupada says, a pure devotee always prays to Krishna. Krishna, all these rascals are suffering in the material world. Please give them intelligence by which they can come back to you. So there is no trace of judgmentality in his use word rascals. It is actually with compassion. So we may not have that compassion. We can usually assume we don't have that compassion, that level of compassion. So when we learn to speak sensitively, then we will be able to avoid unnecessary hurts to people, and thus we'll be able to move forward in making our relationships stronger. So I'll conclude with one point now, that when we have to tell someone that something is wrong. Now, what is the purpose of that? It could be either to make them do the right thing. So as I said earlier, we may deal with people primarily because we have to get things done with them, or we deal with people because we like them. So now there are times when certain things have to be done a particular way. If you're worshipping the deities, okay, you do this deity worship like this, you cook like this, you decorate like this. There are certain ways things have to be told. So at that time, it is not a problem. Basically, there is a person, there is a behavior, and there is a standard. There are three things: there is a person, the behavior, and the standard. So now, if the standard is objectively and rationally communicated beforehand, then when the person acts wrongly, then pointing it out is not so difficult. Rather than saying, you are wrong, you are a bad person. See, this is what is expected over here, and can you do it this way? So, but instead of, what happens is, instead of telling the standard clearly and then expecting people to act accordingly, we may tell, you are so careless, you are so irresponsible, you are so lazy. So here, so as I said, there is a person, there is an action, and there is a standard. So the problem is that the person's actions may not be according to the standard. So if we tell people about the standard in advance, and then when necessary we tell this action is not according to standard, please rectify it, then it is easier for them to digest it. But many times we presume that people know the standard, and when people don't do the action, rather than telling them the standard, we offer a judgment to the person itself. You are irresponsible, you are like this, you are like that. Then people feel wounded by that. So sensitive speech means that we learn to separate the person from the behavior. We learn to separate the person from the behavior. Rather than equating the person with the behavior, we say, okay, this behavior is here, you are here, and let's deal with this behavior. Let's help you. Let's work out how we can rectify it. So here, we are not saying that the behavior is to be accepted. Behavior may need to be rectified, but rather than putting ourselves in a position above them, see, I am here and you are here and you are a misbehaving fool. So we equate them with their behavior. Then when we criticize them, they feel attacked themselves. But instead, what we do is, instead of we being here, we taking a position above them, we being here and they being here, instead what we do is, we understand that I am here, you are here, and this behavior is here. So let's, rather than I being on the opposite side and conflating people with their behavior, I am on their side, and yes, the behavior is here. Let's see what we can do to deal with this. So when people feel that we are with them and not against them, then for them combating the weaknesses becomes easier. Because the one problem is that we have weaknesses. Another is that we also, sometimes we feel we just have to be told, do this thing and do it. But improvement, especially in the behavioral domain, it requires not just the knowledge of what is the right thing to do, but it also requires the encouragement to do that. If that encouragement is not provided, people just become disheartened. One of my main services is writing. So I did some studies, I read some books about writing. So in one such book, a study was done in Wisconsin University in America, and they had a group of students, they were doing creative writing, and there were boys and girls. So the boys decided that we all want to become good writers. So they said, whatever we write, we will present to each other. We will form a group of critics, and each of us will point out what are the faults in the writing. so that we can all learn and we can improve. Now the girls, they came together and they decided we will do exactly the opposite of what the boys are doing. They wanted to assert their independence. So they said that we will form a group, and in our group we will present our writing and we will look at what is good in the writing. So the researchers looked back at this, traced back these students 10 years later and 20 years later. And they found that among the group of boys who had critiqued each other's work, said not one of them had become a professional writer. All they did a professional writing course. They had all got careers in other fields, and most of them had great fear in writing. Whenever they would write, they feel, maybe this will be wrong, this will be wrong, this will be wrong. And even the few who wrote and wrote well, they took an inordinate amount of time to write even ordinary drafts. On the other hand, the girls, they had a group of around 15 girls, they found that 3 of them had become published and celebrated writers. And almost all the remaining, they were known in their circles, in their friend circle, as good writers, in their friends and professional circles. And all of them in their personal lives, they said we enjoy writing. So what happened over here? Actually, writing is, as I said, it's something functionally all of us do writing. But writing as an art, writing as a skill, we don't feel it is necessary. It's voluntary. If I learn it, it's good. If I don't, I'll do something else. So when people were criticized, they felt so discouraged that they just stopped writing. They just lost their heart to write. On the other hand, when they were encouraged, even when there are mistakes, the encouragement inspired them to improve. And eventually they became good writers. So for us, when we are practicing bhakti with each other, we are together practicing bhakti, even if somebody is doing something wrong, this is not, don't do like this, do like this. So it may seem very obvious and common sense to us. But for them, they need to not just be reminded what they are doing is wrong, or be told what is the right thing to do. They may also need the encouragement that you can do it. It may seem a little difficult, but you can do it. So if our words offer judgment instead of encouragement, then they will lose their morale and they may not try it at all. They may settle where they are and they may never grow spiritually. And it will be their loss, but it will also be our loss. How our loss? Because we could have got the opportunity to help someone grow spiritually. And if they grow spiritually through us, then Krishna gives credit to us also for that. So we lose and they lose. So it becomes a lose-lose interaction when we criticize inordinately or excessively. But when we focus, the purpose of the interaction is not just to tell the right thing, but to also invoke the right mood, to inspire confidence, to inspire hope, to raise people's morale. Then, just as we need encouragement, there are so many times when we feel down, we need encouragement. Everyone needs encouragement. Encouragement is for the heart what food is for the body. It's the fuel that enables us to move forwards. And the world is by and large a very discouraging place. So many things keep going wrong in life. So we all need to encourage each other, not discourage each other. So when we encourage each other, then we get the fuel, we give the fuel to others and we get the fuel ourselves by which we can move forwards. I think Mark Twain said that in my writing, he says, I can run on one good compliment for 2 months. He says, if I write articles and some articles I appreciate, some not, but if one article gets appreciated well, that inspires me to go on for 2 months. So actually compliments, not just flattery kind of compliments, but genuine appreciations, they are actually very positive, very encouraging, very empowering. And if we learn to appreciate each other regularly, then occasionally we have to give criticism, it is not a problem. But in the normal times, we just interact functionally, you do this, and then when they don't wrong, we pounce on them. Then it becomes a big problem. Many times when some devotee passes away, then other devotees have a memorial in their service. And at the memorial, they say, oh, this devotee is so good, this devotee was so good, this devotee was so good. And people appreciate the devotee so lavishly. But those same devotees, when the devotee was living, they were so miserly in offering that appreciation. So why not appreciate the devotee when they are alive? They would be so much encouraged. So we can actually be agents of not just the right knowledge. Now some of us may not have the knowledge, some of us may not have the skills to educate people of philosophy or things like that. But all of us can become agents of encouragement. Just speak appreciative words. And that way we can all create much more positive energy in our social and spiritual circles. So I'll summarize what I spoke today, and we can have some questions after that. I spoke about how we can have sensitivity without going into sentimentality. So sentimentality means that sentiment becomes the primary sole factor for deciding what is to be done, what is not to be done. If something feels bad, then we will never do it. Something makes people feel bad, we will never do it. That's like a surgeon who says, oh, the patient will feel pain, so I will not operate the surgeon. No. Sometimes we have to tell. A part of spiritual education is to tell what is right and wrong. But surgery is never the first line of treatment. Surgery is never done without consent. Surgery is done usually with anesthesia, and surgery